I have a personal mission in life in the next 5 years. I am going to create 100 millionaires through exits. And as
Okay.
a byproduct of that, I am creating 20 female millionaires so they can have financial freedom. Especially in Utah, it's like totally okay to have an Etsy shop, but it's not okay to be the CEO of a
Yeah.
company. And having an Etsy shop is 10 times more work. So
Yeah.
I'm extremely passionate about female entrepreneurship as a way to freedom, hedging your bets. Who you marry is not your retirement plan.
Welcome to the Solace. I am James Schramm, certified exit planning advisor and financial advisor at SchrammFinancial Group. Here we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of selling your business and what it takes to get the best valuation. Today we have a great guest, Heather Griffith Barber. She is the queen of rap, also the co-founder of Buy, Scale, Sell. And here we're going to talking about kind of getting the best valuation. We're going to talk about her learning experiences of things that she went through selling her own business and what she would have done differently and things that she thought she did well, as well as what it takes to really kind of grow the business and get it into a place to be valuable to other people. So, Heather, I want to turn the time over to you to explain a little bit about your background and a little bit about who you are.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk to everyone. I am Heather Griffith Barber, and I started my company when I was 23 years old. I now have five companies, and I know a million ways not to do things.
So, from some personal experience. So, what was the first business that you started?
Oh my goodness. Well, we have to go way back, but I was literally like the only 8-year-old with a job. We've always had family businesses, and I learned how to work. I learned how to run a business. By the time I was 18, I was running our family's commercial cleaning company because my dad didn't believe in free rides. So we drove from our house on the country club, by the way, out to clean commercial buildings. And my dad was the dad. Like, if I asked him for $1, he'd say, "When are you going to pay me back?" And I never knew our family had money. I never knew any of that. I just knew how to work and I knew how to run a business. So, literally out of the womb, we've been doing entrepreneurial ventures.
That's great. I'm talking to a lot of people that have sold their business. One of the biggest concerns is making sure you don't, once you have a significant amount of wealth, not ruining your children. So your dad kind of taught you guys from a young age, even though you had money to work hard. What kind of things did he do there?
Um, so that's interesting. School breaks, holidays, things like that. We were at work. There was no like country club membership and hanging out at the pool. It was okay. Um, we are one summer, this is an absolute true story. We owned an art gallery, an art framing company. And my dad got the contract with IHG, which is a very large healthcare organization here in Salt Lake. And then he also got the contract for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints for their temple artwork.
Oh, okay.
So we would literally load up a trailer and the minivan, and we would go install art. I mean, that's
Okay.
what we did for summer breaks. One time we went to Lincoln, Nebraska for 2 weeks with a giant U-Haul truck when I was like 12, holding up the picture for someone else to nail into the wall. And we did that 8, 10, 12 hours a day all summer.
Wow. Wow. So then what led you become so eventually you said you started a company at 22. Was that the Queen of Rap? Is that the business that
It
you started?
was. So of course, being the rebellious teenager that I wanted to be, long story, but I started the University of Utah when I was 15. I graduated when I was 18. I started my MBA when I was 19.
Oh, wow.
So I'm 21. Well, let's go back. Okay, so I'm 19. I'm out of undergrad. And what do you do when you get out of undergrad? Like, go work for a big company. So I decided that I was going to work for Zions Bank, which is the largest bank here in Utah. And I had exactly what HR was looking for. I had prior banking experience and a degree. So at 19 years old, I took over the original branch of Zions Bank. Like I'm talking First South and Main Street in Salt Lake City, Utah, like the one that Brigham Young built. That's the one I took over as the customer service manager.
Wow, at
And I
19.
was super excited. I'm 19 years old. I'm like, this is gonna rock. So I had this newly allocated marketing budget. And I want you to keep in mind, this was like in 2001, 2001. Okay. So this is way pre Pinterest. And I decided I was going to do a customer appreciation luau. So I made cute little invitations and I had the tellers give them out all week. And on Friday, I had a cute banner and I had a lei and a plumeria behind my ear. And I was making little skewers, like pineapple and cherry skewers for refreshments. And about 10 o'clock, Dwight, the assistant regional manager, which I kid you not, you cannot write
I
this
was gonna
stuff.
say
Like
that's awesome. Dwight from The Office.
it
That's
was
awesome.
actually Dwight, calls me. And I go over to the phone and I've got my cute moo on and my Hawaiian like slippers, sandals on. And I answer the phone and I thought Dwight, I honestly like deep down in my toes, I thought Dwight was going to be like, man, you are hitting this out of the park. Great job. Instead, for 10 minutes, he sat on the phone berating me and telling me this is not how we do things. This is way too out of the box. You need to seek permission. And I'm just sitting there, and a single tear goes down my cheek and drops onto my moo.
Oh
And
man.
that's when I decided I am never working for anyone else again.
I
So
bet.
I graciously let the bank pay for my MBA. And as soon as I got that, I said, "Smell you later."
Yeah.
So then I started, yeah, Queen of Wraps with my brothers.
Wow, that's great. And so what made you get into, raps?
So I get asked that question a lot. Like, do you love cars? Do you love this? No, I love money. That's what I love. And we saw a hole in the market. So the origin of, in fact, that's a tip I have for anyone looking to buy a business. So originally our company started as Inflation Creations. So I'm talking like giant gorillas car dealerships.
Okay. So those
So
big giant
that
things that are up in the air blowing
yes.
around. Okay.
Yes, exactly. So it was my younger brother who, my older brother was 24, I was 23, and my younger brother was 22. So, real seasoned, entrepreneurs at this
Yeah.
point. So he's 22 and he's running the company with him and a guy that didn't speak English. And he took it from 100,000 to a million in the first year.
Wow.
And so primarily our his clients were car dealers. And his clients started asking for banners that the gorilla could hold that said 0% financing or Toyota Thon or those type of things. So being the quintessential salesperson, he said yes. Even gave them like an invoice and an estimate. No idea where to get a banner,
Oh,
no idea
perfect.
what to do, but just said yes. So my older brother, who's a real technophile, um, he figured out how to print the banners. Like we need to buy it from here, sell it from here, and then eventually he figured out, okay, we need to buy this printer, we need a capital expenditure. This is what we need to do. Um, so those two worked together for a while, selling banners and inflatables. Now, I want to paint the picture of Salt Lake City in 2006. Like we were not that far off from horse and buggies. Like, talk about unsophisticated marketing, unsophisticated advertising. And when we went to New York, LA, DC, Chicago, we saw all these vehicle wraps. So, driving around billboard type things on buses, on cars, on it was just a pretty standard thing in these bigger markets. So, when a car dealer asked us if or car dealer asked my brother if he could wrap their service vehicle. Matt said, yes.
Of
No
course.
idea how to do a wrap, no idea what it was, no idea of anything. And that's when we saw a huge hole in the market. And that's when Queen of Wraps was born. So, mind you, we called it Queen of Wraps because we wanted to portray that we were the pinnacle, the epitome. We knew how to do wraps. We didn't. It
Yeah.
took us a week and 10 days to do one wrap at the time, but we eventually grew into the title, and that was in 2006. The recession happened, and we didn't even notice, to be honest, because we didn't know what we didn't know. We were so young and dumb and stupid that we just kept going, and on the other side of the recession, we were already 5 years into this business and flourishing, and so things worked out, but ignorance
That
is bliss.
yeah, yeah. No, that's great. You guys were young and didn't have, the stresses probably that some
No?
people have with more established families and things like that. That's great. So, two things here. First of all, were you guys outsourcing the wrapping or did you guys literally you guys were doing it yourselves?
So, our very first, like, 2 wraps, we were outsourcing and losing money on
Yeah.
that. And like I said, my older brother's this technophile. He figured out how to modify our printing process for the banners and use that for the wraps also. So the first 2, which literally, like, I kid you not, took a week, 10 days, that type of thing. When I sold the company, our volume was 9 reps a day.
Oh, wow.
So,
Big
little bit of
difference.
scaling there.
Yeah.
But, yes, the first couple ones, that's another tip I have for you, is market validation.
Yeah.
So, does the market exist for this? Just because you have a product that's original and cool and fun and whatever, you need to have market validation for that. Because it worked in LA, New York, Chicago, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work in Salt Lake City, Utah. So finding a way to validate that market before that giant capital expenditure is a really good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So my next question is I noticed you said you wanted to be known as like the premier or the place that knows how to do it the best. So you did the Queen of Rap,
Mhm.
which I think is a great name, and really catchy. But why Queen, not versus King?
Oh,
Because you had two brothers, right? So there's
yeah,
like,
no, I have 3
oh,
brothers,
three brothers that are in the
but he
business.
was too young. The youngest one is was too young to join the business. He
Oh, okay.
eventually joined the business after he went on a mission for our church and then came home. But I rule my family. Like, I have 3 brothers. This is what we're getting mom for Christmas. This is what the plan is. We're getting family pictures. Here are the colors. Wear this, stand here, and shut up. Like,
There you go.
that's how I roll.
Okay.
So, me being the queen of wraps was a very natural extension of my type A personality. Um, I
And
had
your brothers
already
just rolled with
been
it.
yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Also, I'm a female entrepreneur. I want you to keep in mind how unusual a Mormon female founder was in 2006. I was 23. I'm a
Yeah.
unicorn. So I knew that we needed to set this apart. If we were actually going to make this a big company, we needed to set this apart. We weren't going to be your run of the mill raps are us or that type of thing. We wanted to we wanted less I digress here. Okay. All right, let's go down this rabbit hole,
Yeah.
for a second. Um in the movie 40-Year-Old Virgin, which is not the greatest movie, and I don't know if I would recommend anyone watching that
It
movie.
is.
But
It is really funny.
the one thing I got out of that movie was the love interest runs a store called I Sell Your Stuff on eBay. What do you do? I sell your stuff on eBay.
Yeah.
Genius, right?
Yeah.
What do you do? I don't just do raps. I'm the queen of raps. So
There
we
you go.
wanted a title, a name. We wanted to convey exactly what we did in order to, number one, educate a market. Because again, this was a new product, this was a new space, this was revolutionary in advertising and marketing in Salt Lake in 2006. And then number two, we wanted to convey that, yeah, this is our jam. We don't
Mm.
do everything for everyone. This is the jam.
Yeah.
And it worked.
That's great. That's great. So, I mean, eventually this grew. You said you went from doing one wrap every, 2 weeks to
Yeah.
eventually doing 9 wraps. Was that, and I'm sure that was very calculated growth. Did you guys ever take on any partners, or was it just kind of funding from your own profits, or how did you guys grow it?
Yeah. So we bootstrapped from the bank of dad. Let's go back here for a second. Again, dad being entrepreneur guy. So we came up with the Queen of Wraps idea, and no bank would touch us. Again, 24, 23, 22-year-old kids. So we literally went to the bank of dad and we said, here's a business plan. This is what we want to do. Now, at that time, interest rates were like 0.5 and 1%. My dad charged us 8% and made us pay the entirety of the term. We
Mm.
could not pay off early. We didn't have any wiggle room with that. But and the other caveat was okay, so there was that. The other caveat was we have three siblings in a row and then a giant space. We have an 8-year gap, and then my youngest brother. And my dad said, okay, I will give you the money. Here are the terms. It's 8% interest. You cannot pay off early. This is the term. This is what I want. And when your younger brother comes home from his mission, I want you to hand him 25% of what you've built.
Oh,
Keep
wow.
in mind, he was like 13 at the time. So we just signed it. We're like, sure, why not? Yes.
Uh,
So we did it. We
yeah,
signed this agreement. And then when my brother came home, he was 21. I was 30 at the time. And we had built this business and we cut him in. We went
that's
from
great.
3 owners to 4 owners because that was the agreement.
That's great. So Bank of Dad, he obviously didn't give you guys any breaks,
No,
which is good and bad, right? You learn how business actually works, but at the same time, you wish Dad maybe could have given us more
there could have
favorable
been some more
deals.
flexibility by
Yeah,
him, but alas, there was not.
yeah,
And
not
keep in
having a
mind
prepayment.
the principal was like $50,000. So it wasn't not a huge amount, and we had plenty of money to pay him back, but he would not take it early. He said, "This is what you've agreed to. I need the return on this money. This is how I've planned." And so we did it.
There you go. There you go. So you guys did that was the only real, lending that you guys took. The rest was all bootstrapped.
Yeah, I mean, there were some like strategic lines of credit or things like that that
Yeah.
are, filling gaps and that type of stuff, but no, nothing
Yeah.
huge.
And then did you guys does that require any large capital expenditures? I mean, was there any major equipment or, I mean, because obviously you got to print these things, or is it pretty low capital intensive type business?
It's extremely capital intensive, which is a huge barrier to entry to the market, which is good and bad. So yes, we have two 17,000 square foot buildings. One is completely filled with machinery, and the other one is just for wraps. So I know where you're going with this if you want me to leap ahead
Yeah,
here.
go ahead.
So, one very, very, very valuable piece of knowledge that we learned early on is man cannot live by wraps alone. So, I want you to think about like the McDonald's model. So the hamburger is their loss leader. They're making money on the fries and the drink.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with wraps. So our wraps are our loss leaders. So people come to us, and most of the time they're small businesses. And so they come to us and, oh, I just started Joe's Plumbing. I need a wrap. Okay, awesome. Here's a wrap. Now, the next time that they need a banner or a tablecloth or a business card or whatever, we're their go-to guy. And those are much higher margin items.
Yeah.
And so what we ended up doing is splitting off, not splitting off, but dividing the company. So we have Queen of Wraps, and then we made another entity, uh, Grifco Graphics, which did wholesale graphics, trade shows, event space, fabric printing, all of these other things that complement the wrap um, brand. But Queen of Wraps was always what brought them in. And we like to say that Griffco Graphics is what made the money for us.
Okay.
So when we exited, we sold it as a package. We sold both
You sold both
together.
of them. Okay.
Yeah.
And how long ago? It was semi recently. How long ago did you guys sell
December
Queen of Wraps?
19th. So right under the wire of
There you go.
24. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And what made you want to sell, right? So you've got this flourishing business. I'm sure you guys got systems in place so you're not necessarily running the day to day as much.
No.
You obviously got partners and your brothers. What made you want to get out?
Well, let me just tell you, there is a large difference between a lifestyle business and a scalable business.
Hmm.
And we were running it as a lifestyle business for 20 years. Literally, when we sold the company, we had 52 cell phone lines on our corporate plan. That
Yeah.
included every niece and nephew, um, my husband. In fact, I
IRS
think,
don't, hopefully no one from the IRS is watching this. No, I'm
I know,
just kidding.
seriously though, like maybe we should cut that part out. So we were running it as a lifestyle business because when we founded the company, we decided that we wanted to use this company as a vehicle to foster our family relationships.
Yeah.
That is was our number one goal. So we were running it as such. We were doing corporate retreats. We were doing all the fun things you do to make your profit zero at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, scaling, doing all these different things, but mostly our end goal was to, not our end goal, but our primary goal, let's put it that way, was to foster family relationships. And we did that beautifully for 20 years.
Yeah.
And a completely unsolicited private equity offer came in August. And our industry standard is 2x, 3x EBITDA. And they gave us close to six.
Wow.
So we said, where do we sign? And okay, we will figure out all of these other things later. And the reason why they gave us that multiple is number one, we were involved in a roll up strategy. So
Yeah.
they put us with vision marketing, which had a bigger audience, but they needed the wrap piece. And
Yeah.
then number two, our intangible assets. So our brand, Queen of Wraps, literally, we are the largest vehicle wrap company in Utah. We're it. And it is evidenced by our unaided recall, meaning that people go to Google and they Google Queen of Wraps. They do not Google vehicle wraps Utah. And we
Oh,
have
wow.
data to back that up.
Yeah.
So we took an intangible asset, so Blue Sky, our name, and
Yeah.
made that into a tangible asset with that brand. And that's why we were able to achieve that multiple. Um, Again, not for everyone. We had no, I didn't start 24 thinking by the end of 24 I would sell my business. I didn't start August 1st thinking that by the end of the year I would sell my business. But that's the way that it worked out. It was money we couldn't refuse. And now I'm 43, my older brother's 44, my younger brother's 42, and we were all ready to move on and do other things. My youngest brother, again, giant space. He's 30, let's see, he's 34 and he still needs a job. So he's still
Yeah.
running it
Okay.
for Vision. So he got the payout and he's their VP of Wraps for Vision, specifically running the Queen of Wraps brand because
Did he
he didn't want
roll?
his kids not seeing him go to work every day. He said, I'm too
Yeah.
young to retire. I want my kids seeing me get in the car and going and work.
Yeah, that's great. Did he roll any of his equity back in? Oh, you're still, oh, sorry. Your sound went out for a second.
Okay,
Oh,
what
there
part
you
did we
are.
miss?
We just you were talking about your brother. Let's just we'll edit it from here, but just start with your brother. He was too young to retire,
Okay.
and then kind of go on from there.
Okay. So my younger brother was 34, is 34, and he's too young to retire. And he didn't want his kids seeing their dad hanging out at the house all day. And he wanted his kids seeing their dad getting in the car and going to work from 9 to 5 every day. So he chose to stay on with the company. And he now runs the Queen of Wraps division for Vision. I think it's called Vision Marketing.
Okay, great. Did he roll any of his equity back into the deal? So he's going to get paid out when they eventually sell again.
So yeah, we all now that's an interesting, very nuanced question. We all had to take some payout
Yeah.
because of the structure of the deal. And one brother took 100% payout right now up front. He wasn't betting on anyone but himself, wanted all of his money. Another brother rolled everything. I'm kind of right in the middle there. So different strokes for different folks.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
So, no, that's great. And then one thing that's kind of unique to this time frame, and not this isn't meant to discredit your guys' evaluation. I'm sure you guys deserved the 6 times multiple, but something a lot of people don't understand is right now private equity firms are probably offering even a little bit more than what they normally do because interest rates have been so high for so long that generally these private equity firms, they have a fund that you're a part of now that they've got to they've got to use this money in a certain amount of time. Generally, it's a 7-10 year time frame that they've got to deploy capital and then exit out of these businesses. And when they've had 2 or 3 years where they haven't really deployed much of this capital because interest rates have been so high, now they're kind of forced to, hey, we've got to start using this. So they've been paying a little bit more into this. So I've been trying to tell clients they preferably wouldn't sell to private equity. Sometimes they don't like how private equity will come in and gut the company, and you got to find the right one. But they don't realize that they're paying top dollar right now, and so it's not a bad way to go out. So, did you feel comfortable with the way the private equity came in and bought your company, and is how they're handling it post sale?
Absolutely. Utah's kind of a small place. So we knew you always have a friend of a friend of a friend of a
Yeah,
friend, who knows these type of things. So we
yeah.
vetted them pretty
Is it
extensively.
is it a
Um,
Utah company, a Utah private equity company?
correct. It was Banner
Okay,
Capital. So it's
okay,
Danny Ange's
yeah,
company. So we're pretty familiar with who they are, what they
yeah,
stand for, that type of thing.
yeah,
Um, so that's to your point, that's a very, very, very um big either red flag or green flag for you. And I'd say date before you marry.
yeah.
The first person to come at you with a check might not be your best fit,
Hmm.
especially if they're wanting you to roll equity. So it's like betting on red or black and not knowing where the game is, what you're doing, what's going on. I mean, you just have no idea. So
Yeah,
date before you marry, make sure that your vision is in line with what they are going to do. And like I said, one of my brothers took 100% payout. He said, "I'm only comfortable betting on myself. I know I can make money. I don't know these guys. I don't know what's up." Another brother, extremely familiar with this group, um, said, "I'm going to roll 100% of it. Like this is my horse.
yeah.
I've got a jockey and a horse, and this is my horse." So it depends on your comfort level there. Yeah, it's definitely a personal decision, a very, very personal decision. And to your point with private equity, I kind of feel like, in theory, private equity gets a bad rap until they're writing you a check. There are a
What
lot of
do
business owners that say, like, "Oh, I'm never going to," that's a swear word around here, this or that.
Yeah,
When you have 6x in front of you and someone can take your business to the next level and use all of their resources, you'd be stupid not to do that.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes there's going to be some casualties along the way, and unfortunately, they are about the numbers, right? So they are going to do what they need to do inside the business, but if you are already running an efficient business
Yeah,
and a well-run business, they're probably not going to be cutting a ton of fat. There's not a lot of fat to cut. They try to keep good culture for the most part. Obviously, it's hard with transition of culture, but they're going to try because they want to retain the employees that they have because they're really not going to run the day to day. They're just going to be adding they're going to be adding capital. They're going to be adding resources. They're going to be adding partners, right? But really, the goal is that they keep most of your employees and your brothers.
yeah,
He stayed on, and so that way, eventually, they will sell again. But in the meantime, they've been going through this and trying to keep that culture because that's what's made this company successful, right? They can't just destroy it and
absolutely.
then expect it to keep being as successful as it is because they'll start losing key employees and then they're not going to be worth as much. So to your point, I do think that they do get a bad rap on occasion. They really do gut companies, but those are probably companies that really do need it. So,
I was just going to say, like, most of the time, those companies needed to be gutted.
mhm.
And, it just, it happened. That happened to be a casualty in the course of business. And those are the stories you always hear about. You never hear about, like, oh, they came in and now we're 10x, now we're 20x. Like, you never hear like the good things, you always hear the bad things. So
Yeah.
date
I was
before you
talking
marry.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend. He sold a little early and he like regretted it. And the one phrase that stuck with him, and he doesn't repeat this often, but the company that bought him, the private equity company that bought his company, they said this was the best purchase we've ever had. And that kind of gutted him. He's like, oh man, I could have sold for more. I should have waited a little bit longer. He sold a little too early in the J curve on their sales. But those are the stories you generally don't hear because once the business is sold, a lot of people, they distance themselves from the company. They don't really know what the private equity company is doing with it later on, especially, 5, 6, 7 years down the road. But I agree. I think they get a bad rap more than they probably should.
Yeah.
So you run a few other companies. You said you run 5 right now, correct?
Well,
So,
I own 5. I don't run any.
okay, that's right. Okay. So you own 5 companies. What are the other companies that you're involved in?
So once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. Let's just say that. And so I sold December 19th, and my older brother and I immediately turned around and started my new company, Buy Scale Sell. We started this in January, and we help people buy businesses, scale their businesses, and sell their businesses. So I had kind of had an identity crisis after Queen of Rap sold December 19th. I took, the holidays off, and then January 1st, I sat down and I was like, what does my life look like a month from now, a week from now? I had been doing Queen of Raps for 20 years. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, it's gone. Like, I'm not doing it anymore. I wasn't doing the day to day, but I was involved in voting and on the board, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So not the day to day, but it was my identity. It was like my face is literally on the side of the building on I-15. It was
I
my
mean, you are
identity
the
for 20
queen.
years. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm, I said, what am I going to do? And I decided, I thought long and hard about this, and I decided in the next 5 years, I am going to assist 100 individuals in becoming millionaires through exiting their company. But the part I'm really excited about, as a byproduct of that 100, I want to create 20 female millionaires by exiting a company. I am so passionate about female entrepreneurship, females seeing females exit companies. I shouldn't be an anomaly. I shouldn't be the poster child for exiting a company. I'm getting tons of press. I'm going on a book tour. I'm getting all of this stuff. I have 3 other brothers that got rich too. No one talks to them, but I'm the anomaly. And that shouldn't be. It should be a
Yeah.
regular course of business of women buying businesses, scaling them, and exiting them. This should not be unusual. So I kind of have a chip on my shoulder, and I am ready to help others do exactly what I did. And I know in order to get those 20 female millionaires, I'm going to have to do 80% male, but I'm okay with that if I get those 20. I have two daughters. And so I've got a lot of skin in the game as far as females being, have freedom, have choices, and use the talents that their God given talents and their God given femininity to enhance their business
Yeah.
um, acumen, I guess, for lack of a better term.
No, I think that's great. And I think that's you said you're going to have to work with 80% of males to get to the 20% females. Even then, I mean, you look at the business world and how many people that own businesses in my community here in North LA, I'll tell you, it's not 20% female business ownership, right? It's probably 90, 95% male business ownership. So, I mean, that's a tall order that you've got going for you. Is there something that you're doing specific to be able to target female entrepreneurs?
Well, first of all, being a female entrepreneur, like any video I post, anything, I put my face on it because I want people to see me, like blonde haired, blue eyed girl from random town in Utah can do this. You can do it. Like, I
Yeah.
want to be the poster child for this. So people know it's available. It's not only available, it's doable, very doable. I feel like a lot of female entrepreneurship is, oh, I have an Etsy store. Oh, I make cinnamon buns and sell them to my neighbors. Okay, that's awesome. That's so great. Let me just tell you, that is 10 times harder than scaling an a hair bow um, business or a cinnamon bun business and finding a co-packer. That's the easier path. The harder path is getting out the glue gun and putting these ribbons together, rolling out this dough. Um, so I think there's a disconnect within the female community that you're actually working harder, not smarter. Let's scale these things. Make your life easier. You shouldn't be baking the buns under no circumstances should that be happening. So anyway, I could get off my
No, no,
soapbox
that's
now.
fine. I think that's great. So, what do you think? Where is that disconnect? Is it just a lack of business acumen? Is it just a scared of capital? Right? And I don't mean to be stereotypical, but most women probably don't control the finances in their home, and so do you think it's kind of that type of stuff where they don't feel prepared to take that risk because like you're saying, okay, going to a co-packer, well, that's a bunch of expenses that they haven't had to do on their own. And knowing when's the right time and how to do that is something that most people in general, but probably more specific women have no idea about. And, how do we get women there or where's that disconnect?
You need to make sure you have support. You need to have your biggest cheerleaders around you. Let me give you an example. I had a daughter. She was going to kindergarten. I was on fertility. I was trying to have another child. It just wasn't happening. And she was going to kindergarten, and I was terrified. I was freaking out. I was like, what am I going to do with myself? Now, this child needed me. Now she doesn't. So I was having another identity crisis. And so I start Googling things. Now, this was way before COVID, way before online school, way before everything. My daughter's 14, if that gives you any
Yeah.
space of time here. So 9 years ago. And I found this program at Harvard that was a hybrid program. So you go to Harvard, you go live in Boston for the summer. And then during the year, you do a couple classes remote and online. You fly back to Cambridge a couple times, and you do this for 24 months straight. Keep in mind, I already had an MBA. Keep in mind, I already had these companies that were going that I didn't work at day to day. Keep in mind, I had all of that going. So I sit down with my husband, and how I process information is by speaking. So I'm
Yeah.
telling him how excited I am about this program. And I'm like, I'm going to go to Harvard. I'm going to do this. And then I started thinking about the logistics of it. Like, okay, I'm the primary caregiver, so my daughter will have to come with me, but I don't want to hire a nanny in Boston because I wouldn't know this girl. So I need
Yeah.
to bring a nanny with me. I need to get an apartment for 3 months. Then, if I'm going to continue fertility, I would have to find a fertility doctor there. I'd have to have my husband either come with me or ship his sperm to the clinic. Going through this list of to the normal person would seem enormous hurdles.
Yeah.
And my husband's right there with me. He's
That's
like,
great.
"Yeah, okay, okay. Oh, well, have you thought about this? And have you thought about that?" And so we're talking this out, and to any normal, rational person, it would seem perhaps right now wouldn't be the best time for our family. So we get down to it, and I said, "Honey, I'm going to need a check for $50,000 in order to um, apply to this program and get this going." And he was right there with me. And then he
That's
says,
awesome.
"Yeah, but we're not going to do that." He then goes to explain to me how this wholly unnecessary degree be the best ROI for our family right now. There's a myriad of roadblocks that might make it so this is not the best timing. And I distinctly remember screaming, "You never!" And I run upstairs, slam the door, and I'm just sitting there crying. About 10 minutes later, when the hormones had passed and the emotion had passed, I realized, huh, perhaps my husband is correct. Perhaps this is not the best time for our family to go get this degree. Maybe I should look at other things to do with my time.
Yeah.
But my husband is my biggest cheerleader. He is my biggest support. He lets me use my wings and fly. And when I fall, he is there to catch me. Now, not everyone has a partner that is like my amazing Zach Barber,
Hmm.
but I implore women to find that support system. Who is their ride or die? Who is their biggest cheerleader? That could be a best friend, that could be a sister, that could be a neighbor, that could be a mother in law. But surround yourself with people who support you because that is what you are going to need 3 a.m. on a Tuesday when you are questioning all of your life's decisions in starting this company. You need someone who is going to support you no matter what. And so I implore women to find that support system. If someone is actively not supporting you, I want you to think about rowing a boat. You have a skull team. You have three rowers going forward. That person that doesn't support you is literally rowing against you, and they need to be cut out of your life.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the support system, hopefully it does come from your partner, right? Not everybody has that, but I think that's one of the best places because they're with you day to day and they're in the trenches with you financially. But even beyond that, even if you do have a good support system inside the home, I think having good support outside to be able to bounce ideas off of and be there
Yes.
for you is essential, especially as, okay, you know, your spouse may be able to cover you at home, but you need people to be helping you at the office or things like that. People that can be there and surround you and not just be there physically, but be there emotionally is sometimes you feel as a business owner and a leader, you feel alone and you feel like nobody knows your
Yeah.
situation. And to have other people, especially other people that own businesses, and to be able to them say, hey, I haven't been through exactly this, but this is something else I've been through and this is
Yeah.
how I handled it. And having that kind of support. I have a group of business owners that we're just friends. We go out to lunch once a month and we just are talking. Sometimes we talk business, sometimes we're talking personal, but having that core group of people that we can just be there and talk things out, I think is super helpful.
It's also a rational sounding board. It can, let me give you another example. I have a dear friend who's an EOS implementer, which shout out to EOS. Like every entrepreneur should be on
Yeah.
entrepreneur operating system. But he has a group. and they're all ex-military. I don't know why he's not ex-military, but somehow he got in this group
Who is
with
it? I don't know.
EOS, and they were all. I'm sorry.
Who's the EOS specialist?
His name's Adrian Dayton.
Oh, okay. I don't know him. I know a few of them up in Utah, so I wasn't sure if I knew him,
Okay.
but
Adrian Dayton, and um, he was going through some personal stuff. Let's just put that going through some
yeah.
personal stuff, and they were all setting their goals for the year. Like, what are we going to do? And most of them were onboarding 10, 12 companies, and he's like, I think I could do two. And his peer group was like, absolutely not. You can do eight. I know you have a lot of personal stuff going on, but you can do at least eight. That needs to be your goal. Do not sell yourself short because you have the capability, you have the drive, you have the willingness. It is your duty to help other companies do exactly what you did by using this EOS method. And it made him realize, like, had he not been in that room with those guys pushing him, he might have done two. And the other thing is, he would have been perfectly happy with two.
Yeah.
He would have been like, check, did my goal. Check. I got a lot of personal stuff going on. So two is great. But you need that rational sounding board to tell you if you're about to jump off a cliff or to tell you need to run faster so you can make it to the other side.
Yeah. No, I love that. I want to digress a little bit and go back a little bit to Queen of Wraps. So in that process of selling, what were there any things you think you guys did well in that process of selling? I know you weren't planning on it. They just, you got an offer and then you ended up selling it 6 months later, 5 months later. Or what are some things that you wish you would have done differently in that process?
There are a million things I would have done differently at the beginning, especially when we started the company. Again, the EOS method preaches this, and I wish I would have found that when I was 23, but a 10-year target, a 3-year picture, and a 1-year roadmap. So, what does the company look like in 10 years? Are we still involved in the company? Which siblings are in the company? Which siblings are out of the company? A 3-year picture, what does that look like, smell like, taste like? Like, give me the actual picture of what this looks like. So we didn't have an exit plan. Over 20 years of the course of business, two of my brothers ended up working there day to day, my oldest and my youngest. I had babies, and my oldest daughter was special needs. And so, literally, I went from running a company to a stay at home mom overnight, an unintended stay at home mom, but a stay at home mom nonetheless. Um, I couldn't. I couldn't work. I was literally just going to doctor's appointments with her. My other brother, my middle brother, ended up having the opportunity to buy a Chick-fil-A and then buy a second Chick-fil-A.
Oh,
And
wow.
so he still had ownership in the company, but again, not day to day operations. So I wish we would have structured it differently so we were on the same roadmap from the beginning. So we were not blindsided when this offer came in. Because we've had a million offers on the company. Everyone in town wanted to buy our company. This one just happened to be the right fit for us, but we were totally unprepared. So I wish we would have had at least a vague idea of an exit strategy um, from at least, when the company was 10 years old, if not, 10 months old, but live and learn. So
Yeah.
that being said, my new company, Buy, Scale, Sell, I have us on EOS from day one. That's how we're building the company. So we know I'm not going to be 53 years old and still own this company. Mark my words. Like,
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
happening.
All right, I'm gonna call
So,
you in a few years.
yeah.
I'm just kidding. No, no, I agree. That's something we preach to our business owner clients. Like, hey, we know you're years away from selling, and that's fine, but we should at least start having that
Yeah.
conversation because number one, you want to be prepared so you can get the best valuation. But two, I think it's important for you emotionally to also be
Yes.
ready. And you were talking about the family dynamics, but there is an emotional toll when you are all of a sudden, like you were talking about earlier, you had a kind of identity crisis of you were the queen of wraps and now all of a sudden you're not. What's next in your life?
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of clients that they're not ready to sell, even though they don't really want to be working anymore, but they're 72 years old,
Yeah,
75, or even 65, but they just don't know what's next in their life. They don't have that plan. And so they just keep plugging along and doing what they're doing instead of having that purpose and that drive of,
yeah.
hey, this is my business, this is my company. I'm going to take it to this point and then I'm going to sell it. So I love kind of that idea of making sure even from the beginning we have an exit plan.
I think that there are a lot of natural identity crises in your life. I mentioned your youngest going to kindergarten, your oldest going to kindergarten, your oldest going to college, your youngest going to college. There are a lot of natural times in your life that ebb and flow where you're questioning your existence. What is my purpose here? None of my kids need me. Your husband dies. Now what do I do? Your parents die. I was taking care of them. There are a lot of natural identity crises that just happen. The business thing is one thing you can control in your
Yeah.
life. And so if you don't have a plan after the business is sold, that is terrifying. So you can control that by keep working. But is that the
Hmm.
best use of your mental energy, your physical energy, your emotional energy? Probably not when you're 72 years old.
Yeah.
But if you don't know where you're going, you don't know where you're landing, that's terrifying. So
Yeah.
that's one thing you can control. So I see more often than not, and I'm sure you see this in your practice too, owners hanging on way too long and trying to sell the business when it's worth 0.
Yep. See it all the time. See
And
it all the time.
sorry, that's not. I'm working with a car dealer, and wonderful man, absolutely wonderful man, pillar of the community, been great, wonderful, blah blah blah. But he scaled back his operation so much. He was doing 900 cars a month. Now he's doing 9. Well,
Wow.
no one's going to buy that
Yeah.
business. And he's like, I don't want to work. I said, well, this business isn't sellable. No one can come in and do that and take over at this point. The time to sell it was at 900.
Yeah. Exactly. You want to have some meat on the bones. You want it to show a good profit and you want to see that it's growing, right? That's what people want to buy potential. They don't want to buy something that's dying. So,
The other unusual thing to me, I see that. The other unusual thing I see is that a lot of people, this is their retirement plan, is
mhm,
assuming that they are going to sell this business. Now they've done nothing in order to make this sellable. However, this is their largest asset. They think this is their largest asset. Their top line revenue is 5 million, but their margin is 6%. They think they're going to get 5 million for their company and they're putting all their eggs in this basket. That's the same thing. Like no one wants to buy a job. No one.
yeah,
80% of small businesses never sell, never transact. That's
yeah,
reality. You need to make it. You got to put some lipstick on it. You got to put a dress on, put some heels. You got to go to a couple clubs and bars and, advertise. You're not going to get married sitting in your living room playing on, Xbox or whatever. You got to get out there. It's the same thing with the business. It's got to be sexy. It's got to be attract buyers. No one wants to buy a job.
yeah. I agree. And I think we talked a little bit earlier about, the ad backs, right? You had mentioned that you had on It's a Wrap or Queen of Wraps, you had, I don't know, you said 52 cell phone,
Yeah,
cell phone bills or something of that nature. And, I think that's a lot of business owners, they don't want to take all that stuff out of their business, even though it's hurting their financials. Because you said you want the business to look pretty, you want to put some lipstick on it. Sometimes you need to pay a little bit more in
you
taxes
have
now
to.
to
You
make it
have
so
to.
the
And in my experience, after doing this, we've bought several companies, I've sold several companies. Ideally, you do that 3 years prior to you wanting to sell the business, because that gives you 3 years of track records of financials. The time to start cleaning up your financials are not, 6 months before. 3 years is about where you should be very seriously dedicating time and effort to cleaning up those financials. The other thing I hear all the time, which is so crazy to me, and this even happens with businesses that are listed. I'm helping a med spa right now transact, and it's what? It's March. We're still working on 24 financials. The
Oh, wow.
business has an LOI on it. Uh, yeah, no.
Yeah.
I mean, we're lucky that we still have the buyer on the hook right now
Hmm.
because so many people would have been gone. I mean, these financials need to be ready to go. You can't be waiting around 3 months to get the past year's financials.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, but I also want you've launched a book. The book launched earlier this month, right? So we're in
March
March of
1st.
2025.
Hold on
March
one
1st.
second. I need
Yeah.
to text my 12 o'clock really quick.
Yeah. No worries.
Um, it's my brother, so it's okay.
No worries.
We have to go down physically to the bank to open up a bank account for our business, like with the bank that we already bank with. So I don't even
You have
understand
to,
like why.
yeah, that's weird.
Um,
I know it's frustrating when you have to do stuff in person now. You're like,
seriously though,
I
like when is the last time you went to a bank? Okay,
do whatever I can not to.
I know, seriously, right? Like, and then you show up there and they you know more than they do. But what? Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, no
ask me
worries.
again about the book.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll do that. So, hey, Heather, I appreciate your time. I know we've got things to do, but I want to talk to you about your book. You've launched a book, I think, earlier this month, the beginning of March. We're in 2025. Tell me a little bit about what it is and how it's helping people.
So it's called That's a Wrap, and it's strategies for anchoring and achieving your goals. I got the book deal last January, so January of 24. And like I said, I had no idea I was going to sell my company by December. And serendipitously, I did. The title of the book is That's a Wrap. So pun. And it's about how I did it, how I became the queen of wraps. And more importantly, how you can set goals and achieve those goals.
That's great. Is it on Amazon? Is it on Audible? What platforms can
It's on
people get it from?
Amazon and I'll include it in the show notes.
Yeah.
I'm heading off on my speaking tour on May 13th. So you'll be seeing a lot of content and videos from that.
Well, Heather, appreciate you being on. Where can listeners, get in contact with you or learn more about your business of buy, scale, and sell?
MyScaleSale.com. I'd love to have you join the community. And I got a bunch of videos, bunch of content on there. And I'd love to help you either buy a business, scale your business, or sell your business.
Well, I appreciate you hopping on. Like I said, it's been a pleasure. I've learned a lot. I know our listeners will be learning a lot as well. And let's stay in touch. And thanks for being on.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
Investment advisory services offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors, Inc., SchrammFinancial Group, is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services. Any opinions of those are of the speaker and not necessarily those of Raymond James. This material is being provided for informational purposes only and is not a complete description, nor is it a recommendation. There is no guarantee that these statements, opinions, or forecasts provided will prove to be correct. Investing involves risk, and you may incur a profit or a loss regardless of strategy selected. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Prior to making an investment decision, please consult with your financial advisor about your individual situation. Raymond James is not affiliated with any guests on this podcast.